Okay. So when you're dealing with the smaller commercial stuff, that can happen. When you move upstream, you could be 9, 18, 24 months. It depends. That's why pipeline and prospecting is so important, and knowing who your ideal prospects are. Now, the flip side of that is you make a lot more money off of writing one of these accounts than you do off of writing the personal line stuff. So, it's understanding the balance and managing the pipeline, knowing you can have like the 3 to 5 big rocks, the ones that you're like, man, if I ever wrote that, that would be the account I want. Have 3 to 5 of those. It may take you 2, 3, sometimes 5 years before you actually get the opportunity and get in there, but just keep chipping away at it. And when you close that one, you just replace it with another one. Then you're going to have your step below that, which is the stuff you're actually going to work on all the time. And you need to have a reasonable number of opportunities in your pipeline for that too. I tell everybody in the LMS, in the management learning system, that you should shoot to have between 750 and 1,000 prospects in top of funnel at the very, very top when you create your raw leads lists. Okay. Sounds like a lot, not hard to do when you learn how to do it. There's really only 2 variables that you need to consider. One of them is the size of the company, and the other one is the distance from where you are. We're going to show you how to create the filters inside the different sites to pull that information. But if you do and you don't have a leads list that's got enough raw leads in it, then you might need to either maybe lower the revenue a little bit to include more companies inside that radius, or you could leave the revenue size the same if you only want to focus on stuff of that exact size, and you can take your radius from 25 to 50 and see what happens there. It's a little bit of massaging before you can get that thing dialed in to where you want it. But that's just raw. Okay. Once that happens, and I don't want to recreate the whole prospecting module, but once that happens, you're going to go through and cull what makes sense, what doesn't make sense from there. And you're probably going to end up, if you start with 1,000, you're going to end up with between 500 and 750. That's plenty for you to work. You could work on that for the rest of your career and you'll be perfectly fine. The other thing I want to tell you is, the important part about the business plan piece of this is establishing those behaviors and then being willing to commit to them, knowing what that activity needs to look like. Because when you're doing the outside sales gig, especially with regard to insurance, it's all about the behavior. The results are going to follow the behavior. We know the behaviors you're supposed to be using. We know what successful producers get done in a week. And as long as the average account size is where it needs to be, you should hit your numbers at the end of the year. The reason why I emphasize this, and I say this as much for Jason as I do for you ladies, is, there are going to be times you hit a dry patch. It's just going to happen. I'm sorry, that it's there. It happens to every single one of us, myself included. The story that I always tell about this is one of my producers he had a dry spell for about 4 to 6 weeks. Didn't have a new appointment, nothing. And so I went in to our CRM and I started digging around to see, is this guy doing what he's supposed to be doing? Because I'm always going to look at the behavior first. If he's not doing what I ask him to do, then it's his fault. If he's doing everything that I ask him to do and he's just having a dry patch, I can understand that as long as I can see that it's happening. So I did. I went in, I looked in the CRM, and sure enough, he had been doing his marketing drops. He had been making his phone calls. He'd been sending emails. He just was in a place where either the expiration dates weren't early and, weren't close enough, or he just didn't have enough in his pipeline for those months. And so he was treading water for a little bit. So it was a Friday afternoon. Probably the absolute worst thing for me to do was call him on a Friday afternoon at 4:00 because I thought I was going to fire him. But I called him at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon, and he said, I've been waiting for this call. And I said, what are you talking about, man? And he said, I know, man. I'm in a dry patch. I know. I've not had any new business appointments. I've not brought anything in. I knew it was only a matter of time before you started hammering me, and I was like, oh, no. That's not what I was calling you for. I said, I'm calling you because I wanted to let you know. I know you're having a dry patch, and I know that every single day you don't get a new business appointment or you don't bring something in, you're going to become increasingly critical on yourself, and it's going to only exacerbate the issue and make it worse. So what I would like for you to do, and the reason for my call is I would like for you to take your wife out to a really nice dinner tonight, get a nice bottle of wine or champagne or whatever, and just sit back, chill, relax, and enjoy your evening, enjoy your weekend, and clear your head for Monday. I said, if you do that, I can about guarantee you that in the next 2 weeks, you're going to start clicking back to where you should be. I said, you've been putting in the work, man. I can see that you've been making your calls. I can see you've been making your drops. So he does, takes his wife out to dinner, sends me the bill. I let him expense it. And Wednesday of that next week, he calls me. He's like, man, he goes, you some sort of a fortune teller or what? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you know, that account that I've been working on, that alarm contractor, they just told me they're ready to move forward with an agent of record letter. I'm like, good. $40,000 in commissions to the agency. 2 days later, hey man, you're not going to believe this. That landscaping company I was telling you about over in St. Pete, 20,000 in commissions to the agency. This dude wrote over 150,000 in revenue over the course of the rest of the year. And a lot of agency principals probably would have fired him because he didn't actually produce.